mom and dad dumped the food onto the plate, eat this, you have to eat it all or you're not allowed to leave the table. We were bred to be force fed, like from a young age.
So that's the hardest part I find is once I'm eating, I like to continue eating. So walking away after I've reached that point where like, okay, I'm comfortably full and now I can just step away from the table without finishing what's on the plate. That's hard. And that's hard for a lot of guys.
Mhm.
I know that's one of our habits that we have in our program is eating to 80% full.
Yep.
And I know that a lot of guys struggle with that. And people too, they grew up with the whole upbringing of you can't leave the table until your plate is clean. I know I had that when growing up as well. I don't know. Did you, Lee?
Oh, heck yeah. I had to clean the plate, and that was it. You weren't allowed to leave until you had everything ate. And
Right.
I didn't choose the portions. Like mom and dad dumped the food onto the plate, eat this, you have to eat it all or you're not allowed to leave the table. We were bred to be force fed, like from a young age. As a parent now, that is something that we have never done with our son Harvey. Knowing what I know now, when he sits down to the table to eat, once he says I'm full, I don't care if the plate is half full or whatever. Like once he says I'm full, I say that's fine. Stop. I don't try and you got to eat this, you got to eat that. No, like once he decides on his own, like he's in tune with his own hunger and fullness signals. As soon as he says I'm full, we say okay, that's fine. If you want to leave the table, that's cool. I'm not going to force you to sit here and eat because I want you to eat or because some traditional rules. And he's not helping the starving kids in Africa. Like that was the kid. Did you ever hear that when you were growing up? Like there's people would always say that in third world countries, there's people going without food. So you better eat all the food on your plate. And like me being a pig here in North America isn't helping anybody in a third world country. We're conditioned to eat until we're stuffed. Just think of like when you're at a family dinner, like a Thanksgiving dinner, or you're at an all you can eat buffet or something like that. You eat until you physically can't eat anymore. The limit is when I'm ready to burst. If I eat another bite, I'm going to vomit. Like that's almost the threshold. That's the gauge. We want to kind of reprogram where we think of I'm no longer hungry. Not to the point where I can't eat another bite, but I'm no longer hungry. Like my belly is no longer growling. It's no longer hungry. I'm comfortable. And try to get in tune with that. And this isn't something that's just going to be like a light switch, flick it on or off. But each time you're eating your meals, just eat slowly and be consciously aware and think of like, am I satisfied? Am I satiated? Instead of, can I eat more? You could instantly slash a couple hundred calories from a meal easily, maybe more, right? But like easily, if you just slashed a couple hundred calories from a meal and you did that 2 or 3 times a day, that's your calorie deficit right there. Like it doesn't have to be any more than that.
The way I gauge it too is when I get done a meal, I want to be able to, if I had to, go for a brisk walk. If I get done eating a meal and I have to go lie on the couch and I'm burping and I feel uncomfortable, then I ate too much. So, because I know some guys struggle with the 80% full and they're like, I don't know when I'm 80% full. I don't know. It's like, well, there's no gauge that tells you exactly when you're 80% full. So for me, that my ability to go for a brisk walk after a meal is kind of my gauge where I'm like, okay, I could do that if I wanted to. And oftentimes I do too. I'll get done a meal and then I'll go take the dogs for a walk afterwards.
There was actually a study done comparing the effects of a 10-minute walk after a meal on blood sugar control versus metformin, the diabetic drug. And they said walking after a meal has actually been more effective for lowering and controlling blood sugar than taking prescription drug metformin. And of course, walking after a meal is free. There's no side effects. It's a lot healthier, but that's a great gauge. And it's a great habit to actually implement. Like, okay, once we finish dinner, we're going to go for a little walk. And it doesn't have to be crazy. It could literally be a 10-minute walk. And that's what the study was. It was a 10-minute walk. Like put on your sneakers, walk up the road for 5 minutes, turn around, walk back. It doesn't have to be some high intensity cardio session or hit intervals or sprints. Like, no, walk your ass up the road and turn around and walk back. Like, that's it. I mean, it's if you could do that, that's a great gauge. And it would also be an amazing habit because if you did that, I mean, most people would probably burn 50 to 100 calories in that 10-minute walk, depending on how big you are. That's another way to create a little calorie deficit, but it also improves your blood sugar control and your digestion. And that would be a limiter of how much you're going to gorge yourself, because think of after Thanksgiving dinner or after a trip to the all you can eat buffet. Like, I know back in the day when we used to visit the all you can eat buffet, like it was a challenge to just walk back to the car afterwards. Like, oh my God, I don't even want to do this. Waddling up to the car after the buffet, right? I mean, the thought of actually doing any more than that was not happening.
Yeah, and if it feels like that when you get done eating, then you know you definitely overdid it.
You
That's for
overdid it.
sure.
Of all the stuff we just shared, if people just implemented that, stopping before your stuff, and then going for a 10-minute walk, that would keep someone's weight under control. Like that could be a sustainable weight management tactic right there.